Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. I am recording at the end of a day that I think will be remembered. I think it was a historic day, and not just because on Wednesday the shutdown ended. I think rather the beginning of the end is here for Donald Trump. Finally. So, let's begin as we always begin by recognizing, realizing, affirming, celebrating, and living out of the reality that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So, yeah, y'all, if you were like me, you were stunned and yet not so surprised by the emails that were released, I think very strategically today by the Democrats on the Oversight Committee, the one that is getting in bits and pieces parts and parcel of the Epstein documents. And these are wide ranging across multiple places, but they're getting them. And they released the particular ones this morning to show the urgency of the discharge petition, which was signed. And the last I heard this as a report this evening on Monday evening, that Mike Johnson is going to put a vote for this tomorrow. Now, not tomorrow, excuse me, next week, not tomorrow. Yeah. Now, we know he is a liar. We know he is disingenuous. We know he did everything possible to not bring the House back to avoid this moment. But I do think, y'all, that things are shifting. Now, I'm not going to rehash here what was in those emails today, but you probably heard. And if you haven't, look it up. But they're amazing and damning and showing for the first time in public, in the documents that we can see, that Epstein mentions Trump and all kinds of stuff about T. Rump himself. And all of the denials, all of the downplaying, all of the distractions that Donald Trump has been throwing, tossing, hurling, vomiting at us, still, we, both sides of the aisle, both sides of the political divide, have been pushing for this. And I think we are almost there. Now, I'm hopeful, y'all. And that's really what I wanted to share with you tonight, my sense of hope. And I've said this all along. There are two things that I hope the the soon release of the truth brings. First and foremost, justice for the survivors. You know, when you look at the terrible, terrible story that of this now 25, 30, 40, almost 40 year, in some ways, 35-year, absolute horrible, horrible cover up that began with unspeakably disgusting and terrible crimes. Those women and some men have been fighting to be heard, fighting for just to be affirmed that harm was done, trauma was caused, and to see the men who perpetrated this, and women, people like Maxwell, to see them have some type of consequences, some type of punishment, something for the crimes they committed, it has been long overdue. So that first and foremost is my hope, that they will find the justice that so many of them have deserved for decades now. For us, though, that's for them and for their families and for us, for all of us. I hope that this is something that will break the divide and through unifying all of us against corruption. I think it's pretty remarkable that it was the QAnon and the conspiracy folks who pushed this issue for so long. At the heart of their mythology, at the heart of their mindset was this idea of a global pedophile ring that was being covered up. Now, they wanted to blame it on the Democrats. They thought it was under the pizza place, They thought that it involved human sacrifice and all kinds of other crazy stuff. But you know what? They were right about the global pedophile ring. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Donald Trump were participating in that and perpetrating that and covering that up. So the right brought it to this point. Donald Trump and many of his people campaigned on transparency. And then once that was ended, once they halted that, now the left and really all Americans have picked up on this and are demanding justice. The percentage in polls who are desiring the full truth to come out on this is remarkable, y'all. It is upwards of 70%, 75%. And I think all of us know that the reason that we need transparency, the reason we need daylight on this is because of the corruption, because of the vast corruption that we know is there. We just need the full story. And when it comes out, y'all, it's going to tear so much down. And I hope even now we can begin to think about, after the shock and all of the other stuff and the amazement at the number of people that this takes down, the banks and the country, it's already taken down a British royal, right? All of that we can unite to put into law, put into practice ways to prevent this ever again. And that this is not just the global pedophile ring that banks and many others participated in, but it is the cover-up that has allowed this to continue. I wanted to end with a few words about what we could call ourselves, right? Because I think, in this day and age, you need a name, you need a slogan, you need a graphic, you need a symbol to focus and to rally and to unite, right? So just for fun, I don't usually do this with AI, but with Copilot, which is my AI of choice these days, I asked Copilot, what could be some names for groups of people who actively oppose corruption in government? And here's some of the ones they came up with. Now, I'm not going to say these are final names or names we should use. I just think they put us on a pathway of things to think about. So, Civiguards, Ethicrons, Justice Sentinels, Public Trust Keepers, Clean Slate Advocates. This is in a category of artistic and symbolic terms. Those were serious and noble terms. Thank you, Copilot, for grouping them. Inkrupters. That would be artists who use ink and imagery to disrupt corrupt narratives. You could have trust smiths, the unveilers. I like that one. Sandwich sentinels, right? Sandwich guy. Stencil rebels. That's kind of a fun one. These are the satirical and playful terms, and this will be our last little bit here. You could have Griftbusters, Audit Avengers, the Red Tape Rippers, and Spinbreakers. Kind of like that Spinbreakers. So just some ideas, some thoughts. Again, I'm not saying any of these are the final ones, but let's workshop this. Let's kind of toss some out. Because again, y'all, I really believe that, when there comes a critical mass, right, things can happen quickly. If you study what happened in Watergate, there was a drip and a drip and a drip, and suddenly things moved quickly. And I don't know that we're quite there yet, but today, Wednesday, was a step much closer, I think, to the goal of truth and transparency and justice and an end to this cover up and the corruption that is at its heart. All right, y'all. Who knows what Thursday will bring, but I'm going to go to bed, and let's end with the Serenity Prayer. If you know it, pray it with me. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, y'all. I'll be back with you on the Friday, hopefully in writing. If not writing, then be back with you here in voice and vision. And as I always say, blessing and good, be bold, be well.